What's up, guys? This is Dustin Zimmerman with Game Time Discussions. We are back with another episode of our March to the Madness, looking at who's going to make the NCAA tournament and where everybody stands at this time. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, you should be able to see our screen now. So we are going to go ahead and start talking about our weekly recap. So there are a few games that we can kind of consider as play-in games. These are teams that were on the bubble and we're playing each other this weekend. Oklahoma did beat Texas. That was in Austin, so Texas was the home team. Going into the weekend, Texas was probably slightly higher than Oklahoma on the bubble. After this, as you can see on the current status, Oklahoma likely passes Texas. Indiana beats Ohio State 66 to 60. We had actually had a comment on the last video asking about Ohio State and what potential scenarios there were. Well, I expected Ohio State to win this game and we didn't have to have that scenario talk. Now we do. And we're going to talk about what they need to do and what that looks like moving forward. Pretty big loss for them. They're such a hot and cold team. I really expected them to come out on top, but Indiana, they're going to lose their coach, Mike Woodson. It was senior night. It's a big game for them, but this is one you just couldn't drop if you were Ohio State. On the flip side, if you were Indiana, you also couldn't drop it because they're also on the bubble. So really good win for them. Great job by Mike Woodson to keep his guys going, even with all the rumors going around and all the criticism they've received this year. Georgia beat Vanderbilt 79 to 68. Now, Georgia's been improving a lot here in the latter half of the season. They've done really well. Vanderbilt, they've obviously got some good wins. Both of these teams are on the bubble, but I think at this point, both are going to make the tournament. I'm not too concerned about either making the tournament at this time. All right, so Texas, they are in the first round of the SEC tournament. They did not receive a bye or double bye. Their first round game is against Vanderbilt. So I think Vanderbilt's in the tournament. Like I said, not too worried about them not making the tournament at this point. Obviously, a win in the conference tournament will only boost their resume. Texas, though, needs to win. They're going to need to win the game against Vanderbilt, and then the winner of that game is going to play the 5 seed, which is Texas A&M. And at this point, Texas probably needs to win that one too, if not another one after that. But for sure against Vanderbilt, likely against A&M, assuming they do beat Vanderbilt. Ohio State needs to win at least one game in their conference tournament, maybe needs to win two. They really kind of screwed themselves over at this point. They really needed to win that game against Indiana, since Indiana has not had a strong resume. We'll see what they can do. I think again, they're all a very hot and cold team. It's just going to come down to can they be hot and peak at the right time. Hopefully they can bounce back from this Indiana loss and build off of it and make whatever adjustments, improvements they need to get some must needed wins. They do have a head-to-head win over Texas. It was very early in the year. I think their first game of the season, actually. So if it comes down to them as the last two teams, I'm interested to see what the committee would decide since it was the first game of the year and obviously things have changed quite a bit. Indiana. So I think they just need to win at least one game in their Big Ten tournament. I don't think they're for sure locked into the tournament, the NCAA tournament at this point. I think they need to win at least one game, and if they're able to, plus Texas or Ohio State or some of the other bubble teams we're going to talk about don't have huge runs, then I think they can get into the tournament with just one win. North Carolina, they're going to need to win at least two games. They are, I believe, the 5 seed in the ACC tournament. They've had a really weird year. We're starting to improve. They have one quad one win and a lot of losses. So they do not have a strong resume at all. They're going to need to have some impressive wins in the ACC tournament to make the NCAA tournament. Nebraska, they're another team on the bubble, much lower on the bubble than the teams on the last page. They're probably going to need to make the finals of the Big Ten tournament, if not win it. Boise State, again, they're probably going to need to win the tournament or get lots of help from these other teams while progressing in their tournament. So the reason I put win the tournament, if you win your conference championship tournament, then you get an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. So if any of these teams actually end up winning their conference championship, the tournament, then they will automatically make it. Just winning the regular season conference doesn't make you an automatic bid for the NCAA tournament. For the bigger schools, people like Auburn obviously are going to make the tournament regardless of how they do in the postseason or in the conference tournament. All right, so we had a few rivalry games. Alabama was playing Auburn. This was an amazing game, my favorite game of the weekend. It did go to overtime. Mark Sears won on a game-winning floater. Auburn fans started throwing towels at the Alabama players. Bruce Pearl had to come out and stop the fans. It was crazy. Amazing game, though. Two top-level, top-tier elite teams, both likely deserving one seeds in the NCAA tournament. Duke beat North Carolina. RJ Davis had a great game. He was got the team back in the first half. North Carolina was down double digits, got it back to three. And then Duke, they're just superior. They're the better team. Cooper Flagg, 15 points, 9 boards, 6 assists. Whole team looked great. They win a big rivalry game on the road. They swept North Carolina this year. Oklahoma beat Texas, and this was in Austin. Now, we've talked about Trey Johnson, amazing freshman, not his best game. He had 7 points, went 0 for 14 from the field, 0 for 4 from three. He did go 7 for 7 from the free throw line. That's where all of his points came from. He did have 2 turnovers, and then he missed a layup at the end of the game. I'm still very high on Trey Johnson as a prospect. I think he still deserves to be a lottery pick. If not, then at least a first round pick. Really hoped he would have a big game. This was senior night, so big crowd, electric crowd, the rivalry against Oklahoma. This is the only time Texas and Oklahoma played this year, just due to the size of the SEC. Wish they would have been able to play twice because it is the rivalry game, but so be it. Was really hoping to see more out of Trey Johnson. And then, of course, with them being how they are on the bubble, playing a team also on the bubble vying for one of those last spots, you really want to see your star players, these star freshmen, come up big. Tough game from him. I'm excited to see how he does in the SEC tournament, though, and see if he can step it back up then. A&M, so they were our fraud of the week last week. Obviously, our fraud of the week this week was Trey Johnson, as we saw in the last slide. Well, after I said that, they beat Auburn at home on their senior night. Wade Taylor had his jersey hung in the rafters next to AC Laws. Then they beat LSU by 14 after trailing at half. They've locked up the 5 seed in the SEC tournament. Are they still frauds at this point? I'm not convinced that this is them turning a stone or peaking at the right time yet. Mainly because Auburn was without their point guard, Denver Jones, and LSU is one of the worst teams in the SEC. I'm going to need to see them step it up big in the SEC tournament, win a couple games at least, win the games they're supposed to win, and then we'll see if they deserve that 3-4 seed they're projected to get right now. I definitely don't think they deserve a 2 seed that was projected a few weeks ago. So, scariest teams in the right way. These are the teams that are peaking, are looking amazing, are continuing to improve, the ones I think could make big runs. Duke, looking absolutely dominant, like we've said. They've got a lot of good players. They've got Proctor, they've got Cooper Flagg, obviously, Conkaneppel, Maluak, their center. John Shire's done a great job with that team. A lot of great game planning. They've won, I think, their last 6 games, all by double digits, and most of them by at least 20. St. John's, they won at Marquette. This was another amazing game, probably my second favorite game of the week combined, the Alabama-Auburn one. St. John's did win on a buzzer beater in overtime. And again, this was on the road at Marquette, who was number 20 at the time. We haven't gotten the new rankings out yet. St. John's has looked amazing, as we've said for a couple weeks now. Rick Pitino really has that team peaking. They've continued to improve. They could be scary going into the NCAA tournament. Texas Tech, they've again continued to win. They most recently beat Arizona State. JT Toppin still looks amazing. Houston, with all their senior leadership, they've got Emmanuel Sharp, Jawan Roberts, LJ Cryer. Whole team still looks good. One of the top teams on KenPom as far as offensive and defensive efficiency. And then Georgia, like I said, they've really improved throughout the year. Tough start to conference play, but they really peaked in the latter half. They have a win over, they most recently beat Vanderbilt, like I said. They're beating top teams. They've looked really good. I'm excited to see what they do in the SEC tournament, see if they can make a little bit more noise. Like I said, I think they're already a lock for the NCAA tournament, but it'd be fun to see them make a big run in the SEC tournament too. Scariest teams in the wrong way. So the ones I am afraid could be upset. So A&M, like we said, still subject to fraud alert. Hurts me to say it, but it's true. They just have too much offensive inconsistency. Their defense is fun to watch, can create a lot of turnovers. It can also lead to a lot of open threes for the offense. We'll see if they can get it figured out in the SEC tournament. I need them to show me they can handle the games they're supposed to win and win big and get some of those holes patched up. Auburn. Now, when I say I think these teams can be upset, I don't think Auburn's going to lose to a 16 seed in the NCAA tournament. But I don't know that I trust them to make it to the Elite Eight or Final Four at this point. They lost at A&M. That one didn't concern me just because, again, they didn't have their point guard. They were on the road for a team senior night. It's very hard to win on the road, especially on those nights with electric atmospheres. But then they lost at home on senior night, their own senior night, to their biggest rival. Now, Alabama's a top tier team vying for a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, but that's just a game you can't lose. Janai Broome had an amazing game, 30 plus points. We got to just see what they can do. I want to see them become that dominant team we saw for most of the year now that we're in the SEC tournament. And then Wisconsin. This is the one that scares me the most on this page. They've lost 3 of their last 5 to end the season, 2 of them being at home. Their last game of the year was against Penn State at home, so senior night, and they lose. Penn State didn't even make the Big Ten tournament. The Big Ten just has too many teams. Their tournament doesn't include every team in the conference. That is concerning. When we talk about teams peaking at the right time, that's teams like Georgia, where they go into, they show improvement, they win big. Duke, for a team that was always good and stayed elite and is becoming just more elite seemingly. Wisconsin's the opposite of that at this point. Very concerning. Going to need to see them turn it around the Big Ten tournament. And then teams that have officially gotten bids. So just a reminder, you get an automatic bid if you win your conference championship, the postseason tournament. So that's why some of these teams are the smaller schools. These smaller conferences do their tournaments before the bigger ones like the SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. Omaha. First time they're ever making it, Omaha University. They haven't actually won their conference championship yet. So they are playing St. Thomas in the championship, but St. Thomas just recently went up from Division 2 to Division 1. If you went up within the last 2, or you have to have moved up, it has to have been 2 years since you moved up in order to be eligible to make the NCAA tournament. Because they have not been D1 for 2 years, they can't, so Omaha gets the automatic bid. Drake, they went 30-3. They beat Bradley. We talked about them as team mid-majors to watch out for, to be putting these bigger schools on upset alert. I'm excited to see what Drake can do. I do think they can pull off an upset. I'm excited to see who they get pinned against. And I feel almost bad for one of those higher teams, depending on what seed Drake ends up getting. High Point, they win their conference championship. First time they're ever making it to the NCAA tournament. Lipscomb, they won. I believe it was the last time they made it was 2018 or 2019. And then SIU Edwardsville, they again get their first time ever making the NCAA tournament. So that is everything we have to talk about today. Thank you all very much for joining me. I'm really enjoying going over resumes and seeing what teams need to do, who's going to make it, who's not going to make it, who's going to make a Cinderella run like Drake, for instance. Can Omaha, who is getting in on a technicality, they'll probably win their conference championship. But if they don't, then they get in on the technicality, and then it's really fun if they make some upsets. And then the teams like Ohio State, Indiana, Nebraska, what are they going to do? Are they going to make it? Are Texas or Oklahoma going to have a big conference championship? So we'll go over a lot of that. Selection Sunday is this upcoming Sunday. So we'll have our brackets, or the full bracket will be released then. And then we get to the really fun part of filling out a ton of brackets and spending way too much time on it. So please leave any comments, questions below, anything y'all want me to go over, or any conversation pieces as far as different teams you're a fan of and want to just talk about what they need to do, expectations for them. Thank y'all very much for joining me. I hope y'all have a great week.